Hello and welcome to the launch event of the Rapid Challenge. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm David Cullimore, the Head of Innovation at ProDrive Ventures, and on the agenda for this evening session, we'll be giving you an overview of the Rapid Challenge, what it's all about and why we started it, and we'll also hear from a stellar lineup of speakers on the topics of technology, business and innovation. We'll be hearing from Roland Emmans from HSBC. We have the serial entrepreneur Malcolm Burwell, Vincent Seddon from TBAT Innovation, and then we'll be hearing from Lauren Bell from Cosi Care. Cosi Care is also the winner of the Rapid Challenge from last year. At the end, we'll open up a session for questions and answers. So this will be your opportunity to ask us direct questions about the Rapid Challenge, and I'll give you some more details at the end. But before we get going, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of the partners of the Rapid Challenge who would not be possible without their support. A huge thank you to TBAT Innovation, RPD International, our lead partners, and a thank you to Crowdcube, HSBC, Bridgehead International Agency, 1PLM, the IP Asset Partnership, and Develop 3D. I'd now like to hand over to Tim Colchester, the Chief Operating Officer at ProDrive, to tell us a little bit more about the Rapid Challenge and why we started it. Tim, all yours.
Thank you, David, and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Rapid Challenge launch event. Great to have you online this afternoon. Yeah, so as David said, I head up, one of the things in my role is I head up our ProDrive Ventures arm, which is a division we set up a few years ago to support and invest in startup hardware projects. As a business, we're very innovative and we work on a variety of different projects. And we had a lot of things coming through to us which we were curious about and interested in being part of. So we set up ventures to enable us to invest in these businesses in the form of our engineering services. And to date, we've invested in a number of successful and interesting projects. But what we'd also found was that when we looked around, there was very little support for hardware projects. It's the backbone of UK industry, design and engineering and innovation. But actually, as a hardware project, it's very difficult to get off the ground and get to that very critical MVP or early prototype. So we looked at how we could support those type of hardware businesses and came up with the idea of the Rapid Challenge. And it really was something that we hoped would be a little bit different to anything else that was out there of its type. We particularly wanted to make sure we delivered value to everyone who participated in the event, not just the winners. And we also knew that it had to be done with the support of a number of partners that David has just talked through. It's really important that to give the hardware projects or entrepreneurs the opportunity to really succeed, they need a number of different elements to get them on their way on that journey. So it wasn't just, for example, the engineering services that ProDrive could provide, but it was other supporting activities. And equally, a big lump of money, as much as that might be nice from a headline, it's also then, well, how do I go and deploy that? Who do I need to go and get that help from to get me on my journey? So what we wanted to do, and the vision for the Rapid Challenge, was very much create that ecosystem of appropriate and interested partners who are supportive of this space and really keen to help those hardware startups on their journey. So it is only possible that we can put together the Rapid Challenge with those partners, with the prize package that they put together, which is an incredible value of £75,000 that we share amongst the winners. Again, the top three, they get a share of that package, and we look at what would give them the most value for each of those projects. So the way we structure the challenge is also coming back to this point about supporting everyone who enters it, and we were very keen that it was something that, if you've gone to the time and effort to put in your application and create your video, that actually you got something out of it. And the whole challenge was designed to take people on that journey, of support them through a period of time. So it's intentionally not meant to be a put your application in and there's a winner. It lasts over a few months for a very specific reason. Obviously, we're in the process where we've got our application windows open, but we created these workshops that we'll be holding in September. Initially, they were live events, now they're virtual events. But it was, again, bringing all the partners or those partners that could contribute something and share some of their experience or expertise with anyone who applied who met the criteria of the Rapid Challenge. So the beauty of the virtual event is all of the applicants get the chance to benefit from that knowledge and that insight. So straight away, even just by applying, there is a benefit from being a part of the Rapid Challenge. And then we move beyond that into the interviews and then a live event final again. Through those interviews, through creating business plans, supporting and helping those hardware startups and those entrepreneurs, guide them and get some insight and some feedback from people in the industry or in more general service industry to support those plans they've got and really help them on their journey. So culminating in the final live event where we invite all of the applicants and we invite all the sponsors and all the partners and investors to make it a really exciting and useful evening where everyone can talk to each other and learn from each other and hopefully get some further benefit from this process. So very much those were the two ethos. We wanted to make sure this was a challenge created by a group of partners who are as enthusiastic and excited in this space as we are, and also make sure something was there for everyone who applied. They'd always get something out of this Rapid Challenge.
Right, thank you very much, Tim, for your overview of the Rapid Challenge. I'd just quite like to quickly touch upon some of the previous entrants of the Rapid Challenge and tell you a little bit more about their projects. Obviously, we'll hear a little bit more from Cosi Care and Lauren later on, but Cosi Care is about producing products that help children suffering from eczema, and part of the prize from last year, ProDrive has been helping her develop some new products to expand her range. I'm sure we'll hear more from Lauren. In 2019, the winners were EAV Cargo, which stands for Electric Assist Vehicle, and the clue's in the name. They produce this pedal-assisted logistics vehicle for inner-city deliveries. Since winning the Rapid Challenge, they've gone on to work with the IP Asset Partnership to secure some of their IP. Nuri, runners-up in 2019, they've recently raised £200,000 on the Crowdcube investment platform using the prize that they won in the Rapid Challenge. And then lastly, Benetalk, runners-up in 2020, they produce a wearable device that helps people who stutter, who have a speech impediment. And they've been engaging with TBAT Innovation to secure grant funding to help develop their project. So I hope this gives you a bit of a flavour of the impact of taking part in the Rapid Challenge. And now I'd like to move on to some of the speakers. Hello, Roland. It's all yours.
Hello, good afternoon. Right, so how's the technology going to work then? This is going to be interesting. Am I sharing my screen or is it being done centrally?
No, you can go ahead and share your screen.
Perfect. All right, so whilst I try and sort my technology out for 2 seconds, I'm Roland Emmans. I'm HSBC UK's tech sector head. So what does that mean? That means I get to spend all my time with businesses that I think are fantastic. I've probably spoken to over 400 UK tech sector leaders over the last 18 months through the COVID pandemic. And that's given me quite an interesting perspective on how the world is evolving. Right, let's see if I can share the right screen now. Let's share that and see what happens. Here we go. Fantastic. You can see that, right. So I thought I'd just start, because I've been told I've got 10 minutes, with a few perspectives on the world. The world has changed like never before. There's 9 photos here, 9 pictures about things that we probably wouldn't have thought about much before. Social distancing, the wearing of masks, whether it's sitting on Zoom calls with your friends during lockdown, or whether it's sitting at your computer all hours of the day in your home office like a prisoner. Restaurants being closed, some fantastic differences around data flows, around people flowing, and around how we've travelled or not travelled, and about how we've interacted with things. The vaccine, schools being closed, everybody being educators at home, and certainly in my household, and you may yet hear a trumpet practice in the background, we didn't particularly enjoy being parents as well as teachers. Not my most favourite thing. You've then got the things around the power of social media, or destructive power of social media, and also all the people that have suddenly got dogs. I'm just really listing those as some interesting stuff of what's going on in the world to start with, and how much things have changed, and how much we actually forget how quickly we adapt to that. So we move on. Effectively, there have been 3/4 phases over the last 18 months. A little bit of look back on COVID, what I describe as the oh my God phase, people then transitioning to understand what the rules were, then transitioning to BAU, and more latterly, what does the future look like? And this is a really common theme that I think both as consumers, as individuals, or all three of us, consumers as individuals and as businesses, people are looking at. Certainly talking to leaders in the tech sector, the message to me is, well, we know what's got us here, but we don't believe that's going to set us up for the future. We think the future is going to need different skills. So a lot of the customers I'm talking to are spending a huge amount of time listening to their employees, their suppliers, their customers, really to try and work out what do they need to do for the future. And there's also a big transitional phase where a lot of work's been very tactical over the last 18 months, transition to remote working, for example. People just had to do it and they threw a load of resource at it. And now people are thinking more strategically about, okay, but how do I do this? What does this thing look like? Where is the future? And let's look a little bit about the world we live in. So we live in a world that is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. This is true now like never before. This VUCA concept came out of the military in the late 1970s, and it is much, much more relevant today. We just don't know what's going to go on with the world. Incredibly complicated, and there's lots of ambiguity, not to mention uncertainty. But what does that actually mean from a sort of business perspective? So what I'm trying to do here, and I'm going to apologize probably, I'm not actually going to answer many questions. I'm just going to ask a lot of questions, hopefully with the view that some of these questions will help you get the right side of some of these trends and think about some things here that will impact businesses and impact how we live for the next few years. So if we move on, we're seeing an evolution of the establishment. So big firms, they're looking really hard at what's their core thing. They're divesting areas that aren't core to them. They're focusing on their core operations. They're investing a lot in innovation, and they're innovating. There's a direct link there. But that innovation doesn't necessarily mean they're doing it themselves. There's a huge degree of corporate partnering going on now than we've ever seen before. And increasingly, the firms that are being the most successful, the most disruptive, the most innovative are partnering with some very big firms as part of their journey, because that gives you the acceleration into the customer base. It gives you a bit of financial backing. It gives you a customer. It gives you somebody that's going to pay some bills. Pretty important to make sure you don't run out of cash. Okay, so where does that take us now? Well, kind of why are these things happening? I'm a massive kid at heart. I'm a big fan of the Lego movie, and I'm going to talk about some tribes. So there's 5 tribes in the workforce at the moment. And I think the Lego characters gives you a great insight into how different people are. These 5 tribes, they're just generations. You've also got any number of tribes. So let's look at the return to the office. Some people are desperate to go back. Some people don't really care whether they go back or not, and some people are desperate to never go back. And you've got that. So you've got this genie as well that you can't now put back in the bottle of remote working. Remote working is brilliant in some ways, but it also creates a whole load of new questions around where's work, where's life, what is work, what is the office, how do you measure people, where's mental health being, where's going to sit in all of that, what does commuting look like, how do you pay people, access to global talent, a whole raft of questions. And then you've got this wonderful Internet of Things piece, and I was very pleased to see some wearable IoT earlier on in the conversation. And Internet of Things, wearable devices, smart devices that can measure things are really going to change the world, because if you look at the world we live in now, if you start touching surfaces and you start having people into buildings or into premises that wouldn't normally be there, the risk of them bringing infection and then transmitting it goes up a lot. Whereas you could have a lift that's got a smart sensor on it and it only gets serviced, or it only gets somebody come and visit it when it's out of range, or it's using more power or less power or doing something that it shouldn't be. And that brings to mind this chap. I'm a bit bored of the noughts and ones that you often see in these presentations. And as you've probably heard, I'm a bit of a geek. So Mr. Data from Star Trek. So data. It's all about data. And if you're going to look at it from a sort of physical way, it's what data can you get and how can you use that data? What can your devices give you? What insights can you gain from it? And then there's this massive ESG theme that's sitting across all of these things that's becoming much, much more prevalent and much more important today. So kind of what does this mean? Well, the 4th industrial revolution is what I was talking about 3, 4, 5 years ago. Maybe it's the 5th industrial revolution now, because the world has continued to evolve. This is about whether it's 4th or 5th. We'll let people brighter than me argue it through. But this is the point that it's no longer the human beings making the decisions like we are today. It's the data that makes the decisions for you, and you end up with whether it's autonomous vehicles or farms without people working on them, or data giving you huge insights into what's going on. That graphic at the bottom of the page is around a typhoon hitting the US, or you've got consumption, pollution, where people are. And then the other area I just want to sort of touch on here is the health sector. massive growth there, and a couple of the previous winners of the Rapid Challenge, which, by the way, I think is a fantastic challenge, fantastic way to celebrate some of the great ideas and great innovation coming out of the UK, is around healthcare. If I told you that your GP on average gets your first diagnosis right only 55% of the time, i.e. they get it wrong 45% of the time, that's not a great place to be. That's a societorial bag because you're ill for longer. It's a cost to the health service. You may be prescribed some drugs that you don't need, and that comes into the risk of antibiotic resistance. If I then tell you that IBM Watson in the US, so IBM's AI natural language processing engine, it's got a medical practitioner's license, and it gets stuff right about between 10 and 30% of the time. But if you put those two together, you have the GP and you have an AI listening, a chatbot listening, or a natural language processing engine listening, somewhere between 90 and 95% first time accuracy on diagnosis. That to me sounds like a fantastic thing where we want to be, because it's bringing together the human for the stuff it's humans really good at, and then the machine for the stuff the machine's really good at. And in this context, the doctor gets all the obvious stuff, and then the AI says, hold on, it's not flu. They've just said they've come back from Africa, so they might have dengue fever, so ask them these 5 questions. So just moving on to what I think is my last page. No, that was my last page, so this is interesting. So the final thing I was going to say is the world has changed, and it's not going to go back to the way it used to be. One of the questions for me when I was sort of thinking about how I build this is, okay, well, what are the questions that if I was sitting in your shoes that I'd be wanting to try and understand? Well, what are the pain points that businesses are trying to solve through that world change? We're seeing a greater willingness to adopt change now than ever before, and that willingness is being driven by consumers, customers, being driven by staff being much more willing to accept change than ever before. So you sort of end up in this position that we have evolved more than we could ever think we could evolve. If somebody said to you 15 months ago, the world would be on full lockdown for 12 months and everything would happen remote and the world would carry on, it has carried on. So we should celebrate that. But now it's a case of what does the future look like? So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to hand back to David. So thank you very much for listening to me, and good luck.
Many thanks, Roland. Yes, you're absolutely right. Where there's disruption, there's opportunity, and it's a ripe time to be making changes and making waves. That's great. I'll just take you off the stream now. Thanks, Roland. Right, next up we have Malcolm. I'll bring Malcolm up to the stage now.
Well, hello, everybody, and good evening. David's asked me to take 10 minutes to tell you what it's like to be a hardware entrepreneur, and particularly what success looks like. This is all part of a kind of motivational theme that we have this evening. And he's asked the right guy. I have, since 2000, I've started and led 4 deep tech hardware technology startups, 3 of which I've exited, and 1 that is still running, I'm still associated with. And what I'm going to do this evening is I'm going to tell you a little bit about what success is and how we do it through the vehicle of moments of truth. And a moment of truth for me is something that happens immediately and sheds light suddenly on the path ahead in a momentous way. Either the commercial path ahead in your venture, or the technical path ahead as you wrestle with your hardware technology. So you're going to hear some moments of truth illustrating some important points from my own history. And I'm just going to help you understand what a moment of truth is by playing you a video clip from a Star Trek episode in 1980. And this episode has the 2 gentlemen at the right from the Starship Enterprise traveling back in time to the 1980s. They need to raise some money, and they realize that they have some ideas that they can use to sell to make money. And they're going to put one of them in front of this gentleman on the left. He's the managing director of a sheet glass factory. And let's have a little listen. And the moment of truth that you should experience is right at the end of this short video. Oops. And it would be if the video would play. Let's just do this. There we go. There we go.
Transparent aluminum?
So I hope you felt the jolt that I did as an entrepreneur when this gent saw what transparent aluminum might mean to his glass business. That was a moment of truth. Now, let's talk about some of the things that would cause you to be a hardware entrepreneur and illustrate them with some moments of truth. The first one is this concept of bomber crews. And you're going to be part of a bomber crew when you form your little team. And a bomber crew is a Second World War concept in which these crews that flew over enemy territory and were lucky enough to come back multiple times found themselves bonded tighter than any other group's people. And my illustrating moment of truth surrounds this project and this equipment. That's me 30 years ago. And I developed this machine. It makes Cadbury Flake chocolate bars about 10 times faster than the current, than the technology back then. And I had a team of 5 or 6 people, and including Andy Budd, who ran the electrical and control part of this, this equipment job. And the moment of truth happened because Cadbury, the main board of Cadbury, who we were working for, was due to arrive in the morning to see the prototype of this equipment. And inevitably, all the parts of the prototype only came together the day before. And we turned the prototype on at for the first time at 2 a.m. before that meeting due at 9 a.m. And we destroyed all the bearings in the machine. It went out of control, and all you could hear was little ball bearings bouncing off of the floor around us. Inevitably, we managed to remachine everything, put in some sleeves, redo the control algorithms, and by 9 o'clock, it was all back and working, and we got our next huge chunk of money from Cadbury to build this next larger version. And Andy and my team of 5 got very close through a series of happenstances like that. He actually went on to be not only best man at my wedding, but also you'll hear from him a little bit later in this presentation. He became a tremendous entrepreneur in his own right. The other thing you get to do when you're a hardware entrepreneur is you get to tame a technology and make it commercial. And you need to understand just a little bit about the technology of my current company, ultra-conductive copper company, so I can tell you this moment of truth. So here is another little short video clip. And what we do is we take a layer of atoms of copper, a layer of atoms of carbon, atoms of copper, atoms of carbon. We make a composite of carbon and copper, and then we put an electric field across it, and these little blue dots are electrons, and they travel at the interface between the carbon and the copper. And we have a material that at room temperature is considerably more conductive electrically than pure copper. And the moment of truth in taming this technology came with the right-hand image, which is all of the pages from a final report from a piece of work I commissioned at Shanghai Jiao Tong University. It was a $100,000, 1-year-long project to put carbon nanotubes into copper. And the professor spent most of the presentation talking about the first 20 pages in which he explained why it didn't work and why he couldn't make it work and why it was flaky. And then the moment of truth happened when he talked about the 6 pages in orange at the bottom. It turns out that 2 weeks before the meeting, they were really feeling guilty that they couldn't make this work. And they had a piece of equipment that would deposit sheets of carbon, and they tried it and they made this structure at the left. And I remember him saying, and that seems to work. We seem to have high conductivity, but I'm sorry I failed in this project with your carbon nanotubes. We went ahead and formed a spin-out company that became Ultra-Conductive Copper Company then. How about once you become an entrepreneur for hardware? What are the ingredients of success? Well, of course, you need a good technology. And my moment of truth was with a company I formed years ago called Absolute Sensors, which had a technology shown in the above picture that sensed the position of a pen over a circuit board using electromagnetics. And we made that work behind a touchpad. And below, you'll see a picture of all of the touchpad, or some of the touchpads that Synaptics made at the time. They were and still are the largest manufacturer of touchpads in the world. And my moment of truth was a selling meeting, the first meeting that I had with them, in which I pulled out my demonstrator and played with it and showed you could sign through a touchpad. The CEO of that company came barreling into the room, signed his name, and was visibly excited by the whole thing. And I said, great. So can we start talking about licensing now? And he said to me, absolutely not, but I will buy your company. 6 weeks later, our investors had $20 million in their pocket, having only put $1.5 million into the company itself. And we moved the technology and the patents and the people into Synaptics. The second thing you need, which is even more important, is a fundable market, a market that an investor will give you money to try and attack. And that means that it needs to be big, it needs to be credible, it needs to be soon, within 3 years, and you need to have a competitive advantage to allow you to get into it. And my moment of truth here was when with the ultra-conductive copper company, when I found myself in my first meeting to present the technology at a very large computer company in California. And to my surprise, not only did the CTO turn up, but also a business guy who at the beginning of the meeting looked me in the eye and said, who else are you working with in our industry? And I had to say, I'm not working with anybody in your industry. In fact, I'm not quite sure where this material would be of benefit to you. He turned to the CTO and he said, it's okay then, you guys talk. If this does what it says, what they say it does, we'll just buy the company. And he left the room. I can tell you I had found my fundable market. I just didn't know quite what it was at that point. I did raise several $1 million based on that market and that relationship. And just so you know, it was printed circuit board tracks carrying high data rates between chips. The most important part and element of success is you must have luck. And I'm just going to tell you, I'm going to steal a moment of truth from Andy Budd. This is Andy Budd 20 years later from the picture of me in the Cadbury project. He ran the electric. He's become an entrepreneur in his own right and a CBE, and he's got a couple of really good companies. And in 2010, he was 15 years into M-Blocks, a company that he started. And he tells me that part of his job every 6 months was to present the history of the company to the new engineers who had joined. And he takes them through how they almost, in the first few years of the company, they almost went bankrupt multiple times. And he then gave a piece of advice, which I pass on to you in this audience, in which he said, throughout your careers as entrepreneurs and technologists, make sure you only ever work for lucky companies. Of course, that's a not terribly useful piece of actionable information. But I add to it the Thomas Jefferson attributed quote, in which Thomas Jefferson said, you know, I find that the harder I work, the luckier I get. And really, this element reduces to the fact that you're going to find yourself working as hard as you ever have in your life at this game. So I'm just going to end with what exactly is success. We all know that the world defines success as making money. And this came into sharp relief for me at a moment of truth when I attended a Harvard Business School MBA class, not as a student, but I was there to answer questions on this pen sensing company. Harvard had written a case study about the first year of life of absolute sensors. And this particular session was an executive MBA session in which people with gray hair were sitting out there. And one of them stood up and said to me, Mr. Burwell, how successful was your company? And I want you to answer it on this scale. Did it change your life and did you retire? Or did you buy a fabulous new house? Or did you buy a fast car? Or did you just enjoy the roller coaster ride? And at that moment, I realized that success is not about the zeros on your bank statement. Success is about what it does for your life and how it affects you. And you always have the option, number 4, of enjoying the roller coaster ride. It's my last slide. And I just want to give you one final analogy, which I find really useful. It comes from this book called The Soul of the New Machine, written by Tracy Kidder in 1980. And she embedded herself for 2 years with the entrepreneurial team inside Data General that developed the first 32-bit mini computer. And at the end of the book, she asks Tom West, the entrepreneurial leader of this group, why the heck he did it. She points out there was blood on the walls and that there was customers who didn't believe that it could be done, and people on the team who argued incessantly about how to do it. And she said, what in the world made you not quit and kept you going? And Tom said, you know, it's really easy. He said, it's like a game of pinball. This guy in the picture is playing pinball. When you get a high score in pinball, you don't win any money. You're not awarded any prize. The machine just gives you a free ball and you get to play again. For me, that is the reward of success. You get to play again and again and again. I wish you all good luck in your own upcoming games of pinball. Thanks very much.
Many thanks, Malcolm. That's great. I love that analogy, the pinball analogy. You get to play again. What a great way. Thanks, Malcolm. We'll just take you off the stage now. And we'll now bring on Vincent.
Hi there. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for allowing me to come and be part of this evening. I think my challenge at the moment is going to keep up with the momentum that we've just seen from the previous two talks. What a fantastic way to make a start. So as David said, my name is Vincent Seddon. I'm Head of Business Development at TBAT Innovation. This is our second year that we've supported the ProDrive Rapid Challenge, and we're absolutely delighted to be part of this competition for a second year. As David said, we supported the competition last year, which was very different to the previous year and held virtually. But we've seen some great things come from that competition. And I'm sure Lauren will tell us a little bit more about that in the next presentation. Today, I'd like to talk to you about the support that is available and how you can go from that moment of truth through to a commercial business and what funding is available to help you with that. Quite often, we will get clients come to us and say to us, it's not possible for me to complete this project and this piece of innovation because we just can't get the support in relation to the funding aspect. TBAT Innovation has been set up for just under 20 years now, and we very much specialise in supporting businesses to access funding, particularly funding around research and development to support an innovative project. For those of you on the presentation today, I'm sure you're at the very early stage. It's quite nerve-wracking, quite daunting. You're not quite sure which way to look. What I'd like to do is reassure you that there is support available that can enable you to collaborate with other businesses to complete a piece of innovation and help you take that moment of truth through to commercialization. We're going to start today by talking about accessing grant funding. Grant funding is a great way to take a piece of innovation from very early stage all the way through to commercialization. You may have heard that projects here in the UK have been funded by the UK grant funding body, which is also known as Innovate UK. There are some other logos on the screen at the moment that you might be familiar with. But ultimately, grant funding is a cash grant provided by a funding body to support you to de-risk the process in completing a piece of innovation. It is extremely accessible if you can tick all of those boxes that you've already heard this evening by having an innovative and a competitive edge that will take you into a sizable market, then there is going to be funding available for yourself. In terms of what that looks like, we've pulled together what we call the grant funding landscape. This is just the tip of the iceberg. If you are currently looking to run a piece of innovation and require some funding, then there is grant funding available to you, whether that's UK-based grant funding, EU, or external grant funding. There is always going to be an application process for you to move through, which is the most challenging part, but there is support available to you. And we're really encouraging businesses and startup businesses to move forward and create that piece of innovation. As you can see on the screen, there are a number of different grant opportunities that you can look to apply for, some of which have a theme, some don't. And the difference between those is that the open competition is very much open to any business who is applying innovation to a project to complete a commercial return. At the very top of this screen, you can see what's called a SMART grant. That is available via Innovate UK and gives you the opportunity to apply for up to £2 million worth of grant funding. The beauty of that is that you don't have to pay it back. At the end of that project, hopefully everything's gone well and you've got a very successful commercial business. The UK will get their money back via taxes, I'm sure, but ultimately, as a business, you have the opportunity to collaborate and complete that innovation. This can be very early stage innovation. Some of these projects start at feasibility study, so you're not quite sure if it's actually going to work, but you need to complete some research and development to see if that is a feasible study for you to complete and implement that piece of innovation. That can be funded. Once complete, you can then move on to what's called industrial research, which is funding available to support you in creating an MVP. You don't have to start at feasibility study. If you know it's going to work and you're confident and you have the backing of various different pieces of information to support you, you can go straight to industrial research. And this will help you create that prototype. Again, you can apply for up to £2 million as a collaborative approach. And if you are applying as a single business and not in collaboration, you can apply for up to 500k. So quite a sizable amount of money. Once you've completed your MVP and have a prototype and need to complete more research and development to see if that is going to absolutely work in the industry that you've chosen, you can then move on to what's called experimental development. And this is the third strand to the fund. So at each point in your commercial process, you can look to attract grant funding. The grant funding is payable on a quarterly basis. So you will need to fund some of that at the very beginning. I'm not going to go into too much more detail in relation to grant funding, as I'm pretty sure we'll be talking to a number of you that's on the presentation this evening in a little bit more detail moving forward. But hopefully that's given you the confidence that there is funding available. And that's an alternative method to funding as opposed to bringing in an investor. Each have their own benefits. But of course, grant funding is available for those very early stage projects. There is other support that's available once you've started to complete your...
Okay, Vincent has dropped off. Perhaps we'll be able to get him back on at the end. If we could bring on Lauren, if you're available, we'll move on with you and then perhaps we see if we can get Vincent back on afterwards. Hi, Lauren.
Hey, David. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. We'll press on. The floor's all yours.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Good evening, everyone. So I'm Lauren, and I am the founder of Cosi Care. I was lucky enough last year to win the Rapid Challenge, which was really exciting for us because we're a really kind of early stage business. So a little bit about kind of me and what I've been doing over the last kind of 3 years. So Cosi Care actually started at university. I did a product design degree and had to design or try and solve a problem through good design. So I decided to look quite closely at an issue me and my family have had for a number of years, where my little brother suffers quite severely with eczema. So for anyone who has experience of eczema, psoriasis, or if you've ever had a mosquito bite, you will kind of empathize with how annoying and debilitating itchy skin can be. And when young children have eczema and they scratch their skin, it causes all sorts of issues like kind of worsening their condition and ultimately leading to an infection as well. So Cosi Care was born from that experience, and I decided to try and design a product range to help children essentially stop scratching and get some form of instant relief. So currently the treatments are kind of moisturizers, and you would have to run to your doctor for kind of harsh steroid creams or even kind of immunosuppressant drugs that are quite serious for young children to take. So yeah, I guess David wanted me to talk as well a little bit about my journey from university to now and how the Rapid Challenge has really helped the development of the products. So after university, I knew that I had an idea. I had kind of one prototype that I made by hand in the workshop, and I was really excited to try and commercialize this idea because I know that so many children suffer with eczema, and it's a big problem and a really huge market. So after uni, I joined a hardware startup, the Central Research Lab, where I turned my one nice idea into more of a commercial and viable product that I could transform into a business. So I'm going to show you the products. I haven't put a presentation together because I thought it would be a bit more interesting to actually show you some physical products. So this is the Scratch Star, and essentially children can use it to scratch their skin. It won't break or cut or bleed, and essentially helps them avoid serious infections. So that was developed at the Central Research Lab, and this is the version that you can put in and out of the fridge. So it's really simple to use. You put it in and out of the fridge or freezer. You can add some moisturizer to it, and it's a really great way to offer children some instant relief. I also developed through COVID as well, had a bit more time to focus on design and development, the Scratch Attack Roller. So again, another way to help children relieve their itchy skin without using their fingernails to scratch and harm themselves further. So these two products are actually launching on Monday, which is really exciting because it's been about 3 years in the making. And then when I won the Rapid Challenge, I actually also had the opportunity to further develop our electronic cooling products. So these are the kind of more affordable product range. It's essentially a fancy ice pack that you can use to scratch with. But for 3 years as well, I've been developing my patented technology that essentially allows you to use cooling on the go. It's electronically generated and it's rechargeable. So it's a really exciting way to offer cooling to children that may be on a school trip or away from the home environment, and if they don't have access to a fridge. So when I entered and won the Rapid Challenge, I kind of hit a bit of a roadblock with the electronic product. We had a bit of an issue with overheating. I don't have an electronics background, so I was really trying to reach out to engineers and electronic engineers that could really help me refine this product. And through working with ProDrive in the last kind of 6 months, the project has come on leaps and bounds. We've had some great results with optimizing the cooling technology. So it's just a really great example of how the collaboration has allowed Cosi Care as a business to really refine one of our hero products. So yeah, it's been a really exciting 6 months working alongside some really talented engineers and electronic engineers with ProDrive. We've been doing kind of a lot of physical prototyping and kind of like theoretical work as well. And being a small business, I'm a team of one currently with a lot of kind of talented freelancers in and out of the business. And it essentially just allowed us to have extra hands on deck, a lot more experience. And yeah, hopefully we'll be looking to launch the electronic product further in kind of 2022. But for now, these are the products that we're launching kind of on Monday. So if there are any designers or kind of entrepreneurs that are interested to follow the journey, I'm always happy to give advice and help along the way. I think being a new business, it's really important to call on as many competitions and resources as possible. A little bit more about kind of how I approached fundraising. A lot of my strategy, especially straight after university, was to enter a lot of kind of student-based competitions. I ended up raising over £120,000 in equity-free funding through different kind of avenues, and that allowed me to really put in the groundwork with product development. So I think competitions like this are incredibly valuable, and I think if you're a startup or if you just have an idea that you'd really like to refine and turn into a physical product, something that you can commercialize, this kind of strategy has definitely worked for me. And yeah, we're really excited to see kind of where the next few months go. We're still in collaboration with ProDrive, so hopefully we'll get to where we need to be with the electronic product to launch that one as well. So yeah, good luck everyone with the competition. I definitely hope you get as much out of it as I did. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Lauren. That's great to hear. So you've got such a great product, and helping children which would otherwise be suffering. It's a great cause as well. So yeah, thanks for coming on the stage and telling us a bit more about Cosi Care.
Thank you.
We'll see if we can bring back Vincent, see if he can finish off what he was going to say. I'll just remove you, Lauren. Thanks a lot, Lauren.
let's give it another go, round 2. So hopefully this is where you kind of saw up to in the previous half of this session. So grant funding is there to help and support businesses right at the very beginning. But once you then start to spend capital as a business, there is also an opportunity to claim some of that back by the HMRC relief scheme. This is an opportunity to get a percentage back of your expenditure, which will then help reinvest back into the business and continue the innovation. In terms of those 2 incentives, that's not kind of where it stops. That's just a bit of an example of how that can help and support businesses right at the very beginning. On the screen now, you can see a few more examples of what that looks like. But I guess really what I wanted to say was, don't be afraid to take that step forward. There is an opportunity to bring in funding and support from various different opportunities. There are a number of different companies that provide support and guidance to help you on that journey. You don't have to be the sole entrepreneur and juggling all of those plates. In terms of TBAT innovation, we have supported a number of different businesses who were once those very first innovators, very small, and had that very small moment of truth. Hopefully some of these logos that you can see on the screen at the moment will give you confidence that it is possible to move forward and create a very, very successful business. From us here at TBAT, we hope that we see you all on the journey. We wish you the very, very best of luck going through the application stage. And we look forward to seeing your applications over the next few months. Thank you very much to David and the team for having us on board, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Right. Thanks a lot, Vincent. I'd just like to end the session by telling you a little bit more about what you have to do, and hopefully this has got you all excited about the Rapid Challenge. Let me just share my screen. So what do you need to do next? So if you'd like to get involved in the Rapid Challenge, head to the Rapid Challenge website, which is therapidchallenge.com, to apply, where you will find a basic application form. And the idea with this is to capture some of the basic information about your business. It's not War and Peace, it's a very basic form. And we also ask that you submit a short, less than 3-minute video explaining your project, and ideally showing us your prototype if you have one. Seeing is always believing, and if we can see a prototype, that'll be great. Now, the application is designed to capture the top level information. Later on, after the workshop, that is your opportunity to submit a more detailed business plan, and that will be used to assess your project and invite the top 5 towards the interviews, which is towards October time. And then the best, those 3 will be interviewed. The best 3 will then head towards the final, as Tim said, which will feature investors and interested parties who you will want to connect with. But the main point now is to get your application in. Applications close on the 30th of July, so be sure to get it in before then. So that's all the information that we'd like to cover in this presentation. We do, however, now have a session on the left-hand tab. You should see sessions now available. If you'd like to ask us a question about the Rapid Challenge, head over there and we'll speak to you. You can either listen in or share your screen. But for everyone else, thank you for joining us, and we'll speak to you in the sessions.